Senator Herr votes no.
Senator Herr votes no.
Senator Port votes no.
Senator Port votes no. Senator Rasmussen, those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that those not voting be excused from voting.
Mr. President, parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. President, I request absentees. Mr. President, there's a motion in front of the body, and I've requested absentees. There needs to be a voice vote, Mr. President, on that motion.
The Secretary will close the roll.
Mr. President, point of order.
There being
Mr. President, point of order.
18 ayes
Under Rule
and
41.
Mr. President, point of order.
Mr. President, point of order.
Mr. President, point of order.
Mr. President,
Follow the rules.
we have rules.
Follow the rules.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, follow the rules.
We will not stand for this.
Mr. Point of order.
Mr. President, Section
Mr.
5
Point of order.
you as the President.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Constitution has rules.
Mr. President.
Mr. President. Point of order. Mr. President.
Abide by the rules, Mr. President.
Mr. President, point of order.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, point of order.
Hear what's going on. You need to follow the rules. We don't even know what's going on.
Follow the rules.
You are out of order. You should not be here. What are you doing? You are not doing your job. You're not representing the people of the Senate or the state of Minnesota. You have to follow the rules of the Senate.
Order.
President.
Mr. President.
Point of order.
Point of order. Mr. President, point of order.
Mr. President, you need to follow the rules. You're not following the rules. You're breaking the rules. This is the worst banana report we've ever seen in the history of the Senate.
Mr. President, follow the rules. President.
Parliamentary inquiry,
Mr. President, point of order.
Point of order.
Mr. President, point of order. Point of order. Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, point of order. Follow the rules. Follow the rules. President. Follow the rules. Point follow the rules.
It's that simple.
Mr. President, follow the rules. Mr. President, follow the rules.
Mr.
President, follow the rules. Mr. President, point of order. Mr. President,
Mr. President, point of order.
Mr. President, point of order.
This is the problem when you don't follow the rules all the time.
Point of order. Mr. President, I have a point of order under Mason Section 576.
For those voting pursuant to
Mr. President, you gotta
Mr.
follow
President,
the
you need
rules.
to follow the rules.
We don't know what the rules are. We're not following the rules. You can't vote on things.
Integrity of the Senate.
Follow the rules. Mr. President, point of order.
You follow the rules.
Follow the rules. We want a point of order.
Mr. President, you got to follow the rules.
Mr. President, we have rules and we must follow them.
Point of order.
Mr. President, we have laws and we must follow the rules.
Once you break them,
There's no rules to follow.
Mr. President, abide by the rules of the Senate.
Equal and fair to both parties, then there's no rules.
Point of order. Point of order.
There is no rules if you don't follow them yourself.
Mr. President, point of order.
The rules are broken. There's no rules.
We can't. Point of order, Mr. President. Mr. President, point of
because we don't know what's happening.
Mr.
I have a point of Mr. President, point of order. We don't have authority. We don't have a bill to vote on it. We don't know what's going on. We can't hear right now. Mr. President,
You're inviting Mr. President.
Rules are there to also protect the minority views, Mr. President. President, point of order.
Point of order.
You have to follow the rules for both majority and minority, Mr. President. Standard
Mr. President,
for both members shall adhere to the highest standard of ethical conduct as embodied in the legislative Constitution, state law, and these rules. The members shall not publish or distribute written material.
right here. Mr. President,
If the member knows or has reason to know that the material includes statements of
President,
improper conduct or misconduct that violates a rule,
Mr. President,
administrative policy of the Senate that violates the norms of the Senate, that betrays the public trust, or that tends to bring Senate into disorder and dispute. Your motions right now are bringing the Senate into dishonor and disrespect right now because you're not following the rules. Parliamentary inquiry.
Point of order under 5 seconds.
Point of order.
That means you too.
I'm standing.
Mr. President.
Everyone
Mr. President.
Mr. President. Point of order.
Mr. President.
Point of order. We'll give you that authority.
Mr. President.
Mr. President. President, point of order. Which rule gives you the authority? Point of order.
Point of order. President.
Mr. President, point of order. Mr. President, you are out of order.
Mr.
President.
We have rules. We have rules. We have to follow them.
President.
And then things like this don't happen.
Call on one of us.
And minority.
President, call on one of us. Point of order.
To lay the bill on
Mr. President, point of
President, what are we voting on? I don't even know. I can't hear.
Point of order, Mr.
Can you please tell me what's happening? I don't. There's a bill on the board, and everyone's voting yes, and we don't know what's going on.
President.
Point of
Can you please tell me?
the motion that's on.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, we have members in the chamber that you need to tell them what's on the board because he needs to know what he's voting on. This is violating his human rights.
You must follow the rules. Follow the rules.
Masons, I still have the floor.
Mr. President, point of order.
This does not serve.
Mr. President, I have a point of parliamentary inquiry. You are out of line, Mr. President. You can't be doing this.
You're making democracy. You must follow the rules.
What rules are we following right now, Mr. President?
Of Minnesota.
You are silencing.
This is not Russia. This is communism. We live in America.
President,
You should learn that.
Mr. President, we will not
Mr.
stand
President,
down.
you're out of order.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
This is a banana court. This is not how we do. This is not how rules are made. This is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
President.
Motion is to adjourn.
Mr.
President, point of order.
We have a constitution and we're not following it. Mr. President, I appoint a parliamentary inquiry. Mr. President.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, Senator Morrison, you have a question.
Motion is to adjourn.
Senator Morrison,
President, what's going on
to a
here?
question. Is this how you will be in Congress by shutting down half the voices of the people?
Mr. President, you must
Mr. President, Senator Warren, yield to a question. Is this how you will represent the people in Congress by shutting down half the voices of the American people?
Mr. President. I still have
Mr. President,
I have a motion.
Senator Morrison, yield to a question.
Mr. President.
Under Mr. President. Senator Morrison, is this how you represent the American people by shutting down the voices of the Christians?
will be enjoyed. Rules can go to order.
We're not even going to debate or discuss a bill.
Disappointing rules.
Mr. President! You're making a mockery of what we're doing!
Mr. President!
Point of order.
This is a sham! Look what you've done to the state!
Mr.
Incredibly
disappointing.
Minnesota has no idea.
The motion.
Unbelievable.
This is a mistake.
This is a disgrace to the institution, a disgrace to the Minnesota Senate, a disgrace to the people of Minnesota. Mr. President, you should be ashamed. This is not how we act in the Minnesota Senate.
Mr. President.
Votes aye.
The majority party should be ashamed of how they're acting. The people of Minnesota deserve better. Mr. President, the people of Minnesota deserve better than this. You know better.
Mr. President,
Point of order. Point of order. Mr. President, point of order. This is a disgrace to the
Mr. President,
you are silencing
Mr. President. Minnesota have no idea what's going on. This is a sham! This is a sham!
Nothing but chaos.
Mr. President,
Mr. President, you voice your
Can you repeat the question?
Mr. President, since we're doing all this, can we also pass sports betting?
Mr. President, point of parliamentary order. What motion are we on?
6.3, improper conduct includes conduct that violates the rules or administrative policy of the Senate that violates accepted norms of the Senate behavior that betrays the public trust or that attempts to bring the Senate against the honor God will judge you.
Mr. President, point of order. Mr. President, I move point of order. Mr. President, point of order. By the rules, Mr. President.
What a disaster. What a disgrace.
Point of order. Constitution to follow.
It's a great way to silence the minority party. Are you kidding me right now?
Anything you try to pass, I call a point of order, Mr. President. Mr. President, point of order.
Point of order.
Minnesota,
President, point of order.
President, Mr. President, point of Article 4, Section 6.
Point of order. Mr. President, 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 point of order.
Article 4, Section 17.
Mr. President, point of order.
Bills have to be
Point of order. To the majority.
Mr. President, the majority. Supreme Court has to have an arbitrary passing bills. You don't get to pick the two. When you apply them. Mr. President, all the time, Mr. President.
This is on you.
Leadership is what you're willing to do.
I'd like to make a motion to refer the resolution may be referred to a committee at any time.
What a disgrace to Minnesota.
Picking which ones to apply.
It's a great way to silence the people.
The President shall discuss the questions before taking the vote.
I move to
Page 26,
President.
vote for the podium. The President, this is the state the question before taking the vote. The President shall declare the result of the vote. Remember, questions the result of the State the question before taking the vote. Mr. President, President shall declare the results of the vote if a member questions the
We've never seen somebody try to violate the rules like this. Mr. President, never seen this President ignoring the rules. Shameful, Mr. President.
Point of order. Mr. President, this is what we get when we try to work with the Bring some order back to order. This is how they pass the money. Now we're letting the majority. We're not following the rules.
Mr. President.
Minnesotans deserve better than this.
Ignoring the rules.
And anytime you do start a
This is what happens when rules are
roll call vote.
no rules
Must be entered in the journal. Must be entered in the choice. Roll call vote.
preside over the rules. Doesn't mean that it will decide the rules to apply. Mr. President, you do the right thing.
Minnesota are watching this.
The President shall distinctly state the question before taking the vote. The President shall declare the results of the vote if a member questions the results of the vote. President, order the Mr. President. Absolutely not.
The people deserve better.
We are against standards of ethical conduct in the Senate. Improper conduct includes conduct that violates the rule or the Democratic policy. Minority has a view.
Point of order.
Minority has
I make the motion to adjourn signing aye, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Improper conduct includes conduct that violates the rule or adheres to the policy of the Senate. That violates the Senate norm of the Senate that betrays the public trust or that
listen to This is what happens when you treat people so unfair, Mr. President. You and the Democrat leadership
members shall adhere to the highest standard of ethical conduct embodied in the Minnesota Constitution, state laws, and these rules. Avoid this. Mr. President, not do that. I make the motion to adjourn signing aye, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, you know the people deserve better than this. There's a motion to adjourn signing aye, Mr. President. That's the highest motion. We must uphold that, Mr. President.
Senator Dames, would you yield for a question?
President.
Standard page 36, standards of ethical conduct. Improper conduct includes conduct that violates the rules of administrative policy in the Senate. We are violating the administrative rules right now by not following the rules.
Not at all.
That violates accepted norms of state and Senate behavior. This is not normal. It shouldn't be accepted. We cannot accept what you are doing. This is bastardizing our Constitution and the rules of law. Public trust, I don't know what does betray the public trust. No one's ever going to trust anybody with their laws of hand if we can't follow the rules within our own policies. Attempts to bring the Senate into dishonor and disrepute. Mr. President, I make the motion to adjourn signing aye, Mr. President.
Mr. President, point of order. Their views as the majority.
What is the
business for all of those by picking and choosing and arbitrarily deciding which ones you're going to use, which ones is known over the minority history. That's what's going on here, Mr. President. The public needs to know. Rules to not follow. Even though the President,
I have a point of parliamentary authority. Mr. President, I wish to be recognized.
cannot trample over the minority just because you're the President. Just because you're the President. 67 senators have been elected
And you
Certain
point of order,
Mr. President, what we have the right to have the rules apply to every one of us.
Mr. President, there's been a motion to adjourn sine die. That must be upheld. We must take that vote right now, Mr. President.
People of Minnesota.
Unbelievable, Mr. President.
And we'll be here for another 10 minutes.
rules don't
Mr.
matter.
President.
You took it off, Mr. President.
Mr. President, point of order. Point of parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President. I'd kind of like to know how I lost the floor on that debate. Can you help me with that? Mr. President, can you help me with that parliamentary inquiry? I had the floor. What happened?
I'll be happy to talk to you about it if you really want to talk about it after. But it seems really interesting to me that you now want to talk about it, which I don't mind because tensions are always high. As a person who sits here, when there's something that comes up, we deal with it in real time. So I'll be happy to talk with you about it, Senator Howe, if you're really serious.
But I am, but because I never relinquished the floor, Mr. President. And if we can have this, everyone should know how this transpired because I never gave up the floor. That should have came right back to me, Mr. President, under Mason's Rule 90.
Senator, we'll certainly talk about it later because right now is not the time, with all due respect.
Well, Mr. President, with all due respect, you gave me no respect as the senator who had the floor on the debate. And that, Mr. President, is where this all went down, and the decorum of this institution went all south, Mr. President. And this all goes on you and your party, Mr. President.
So, Senator, from my vantage point, it is not a thorough discussion if you're just going to yell, and if you're just going to say what you want to say. May I? Because I listen. I didn't do anything else. I listened to you. If you were serious, you would also analyze the actions of what occurred in this chamber not too long ago, and the things that were being said, and the things that were being yelled, and now you want to say that you're concerned about this institution. We have to reflect caring about the institution even when it's not popular. Even when we disagree with something, we cannot just embrace it when things go our way. We have to even do it when things don't go our way, or even if we think that there's something wrong. There's a way,
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
I wish that we would have dealt with that.
Mr.
That goes both ways, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
I tell you what, those actions that you took preceded what...
Senator, I'll certainly get back to you. Senator
Pappas?
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like the pages to pass out the spreadsheets, please. We have one last bill to do, and that is our cash bonding bill. Unfortunately, we didn't make an agreement with Republicans, so we don't have the final bill. But I do have the spreadsheet to show you what it could have looked like. It's 3/4 of it is agreed upon, but I never did see the GOP Senate local project list from Senator Housley.
Remaining under motions and resolutions, the secretary will read the message.
Mr.
Reverting
President,
to the third order of business, the secretary will read the message.
I have the honor to announce the passage by the House of the following Senate file as amended by the House, in which amendments the concurrence of the Senate is respectfully requested. Senate file number 4225, a bill relating to agriculture, amending agriculture policy, etc. Senate file number 4225 is herewith returned to the Senate. Signed, Patrick D. Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Mr. President, I impose a
Mr.
call
President,
to Senate.
I move that the Senate concur in the amendments by the House to Senate File 4225, and that the bill be placed on its passage as amendment. And Mr. President, I move the previous question. And I request a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Call of the Senate has been requested. And we acknowledge that the previous question, let's do the call as fast as we can. Senator Pappas, a roll call was requested. Close the board.
I move that further proceedings under the roll call be suspended and the sergeants be told to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails.
Division.
Senator Pappas.
Division,
Senator Pappas.
Mr. President. Mr.
A
President,
roll call
we
was
called for
requested
division.
and a roll call was granted. The secretary will.
Mr. President, there weren't enough votes.
The secretary will take the roll.
There weren't enough votes on the roll, and I called for division. Mr. President, there weren't enough votes on the roll call to suspend the roll, and I called for division.
It was a roll call. You don't have a division on a roll call.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7, Senator Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dietzig votes aye.
Senator Dietzig votes aye.
Senator Herr votes aye.
Senator Herr votes aye.
Senator Port votes aye.
Senator Port votes aye. Senator Kunis.
Mr. President, point of parliamentary inquiry.
All having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 35 ayes and 1 no, the motion is adopted. The secretary will give the bill. We're on the motion to concur. Roll call. Roll call requested, roll call granted. The secretary will take the roll on the
Mr.
motion
President,
to
point of
concur.
parliamentary inquiry.
No, we're beyond that.
We are not under roll
Mr. President,
call.
I thought a spreadsheet was being handed out.
Mr. President, Senator Dietzig votes aye.
Mr. President, I don't have a spreadsheet.
Senator Dietzig votes aye.
Senator Herr votes aye.
Point of order, Mr. President.
I have a spreadsheet.
Mr. President, we have no spreadsheet.
We have no spreadsheet, Mr.
How
President.
can people vote without a spreadsheet? Mr. President.
We have no spreadsheet.
Mr.
Senator
President.
Dietzig votes aye. Senator.
Oh, we only have 1 minute till midnight, Mr. President. You're going to cram this through, too, just like everything else this session. Mr. President, do we have any rules? Mr. President, do we have any rules here in the Senate body?
There is.
Mr.
Mr.
President, the motion must be in writing.
Mr. President, where are our rules?
All senators
Mr. President, we have no spreadsheet.
The secretary will close the roll.
Mr. President, we have no rules in this body.
2 noes. The motion prevails.
Mr. President.
The bill is passed and its title agreed to.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Mr. President, point of order.
I'm sorry, we have to give it a third reading. That was
Mr. President, point of order.
We have to give it a third reading that the secretary will report the bill.
Senate File Number 4225, a bill for an act relating to agriculture, amending agriculture policy provisions.
Third reading. Roll call requested.
Roll call.
Roll call granted. The secretary will take the roll.
Senator Dietzig votes aye.
Senator Dietzig votes aye.
Senator Herr votes aye.
Senator Herr votes aye.
Senator Port votes
Mr.
aye.
President, it's midnight. Mr. President, it is midnight.
The roll has not been
The clock says midnight. It's midnight. Mr. President, it is midnight. Point of order.
Midnight. Mr. President.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Mr.
President, it's midnight.
Midnight.
It is midnight, Mr. President. It is past midnight, Mr. President. Mr. President, it is past midnight.
Mr. President,
it's past midnight. No business can be conducted after midnight. No bills can be passed after midnight, Mr. President.
Mr. President, the roll is not closed and it is past midnight.
The roll has not been closed. It is past midnight. It is not closed and it is past midnight. Follow the rules, Mr. President.
It's past midnight.
Mr. President, you called it already. You said it was called. It was past midnight. You said it. You cannot close the roll after midnight.
It was done after midnight when the last one was done, so it does not pass.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we do now adjourn sine die.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion prevails.
Mr. President.